Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma, and we are so excited to be here to further chat about the 4 agreements. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Well, hi, Nick.
Hey there, Kisma.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be back with the podcast.
It's been a pause. It's been a moment. It's been a couple of moments.
It's
been many moments.
It's been a few moments at least, yeah.
We had much going on, and we're so grateful for all the cool things happening. And we are also very excited to be back here completing this week and next week our series on the 4 and the 5th agreements.
Yeah, this has really been... It's been on my mind in the background for a while now, you know, especially as we've been on hiatus here.
Right.
But yeah, it's just really good to be back. It's really good to be talking about this and revisiting it. So why don't we bring the audience up to speed? What have we been up to?
Well, I had the Prosperity Code Live, which was here in San Diego in La Jolla. You were MC. You taught a segment. We had, 65 people come in person. And then we had many people on the live stream. So if you were there, we just had so much fun. It was really an incredible event and great to have people together. And I've been working with my group, the Ashram Alchemists, which is pretty much my inner circle, and wrapping up the Prosperity Code Coaching Methods segment. We'll be coming back to that, but it's been really a full force of amazing souls.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh man, all sorts of things. Not all of it I think I want to get into right now, but I think a major transition has been to really be more present in your business and Kisma Productions, and
so grateful for that.
Kind of working some of the behind the scenes stuff there, which has been really exciting for me and really fulfilling. The event was awesome. It was just really fun, and for me personally, it's really fulfilling to be in a room with such awesome people, to be sharing time and space together,
right?
And talking about amazing teachings, being led by you. It was just really so much fun and so fulfilling to be a part of that. So
it's great. So
boy,
cool.
Yeah, that really.
I ran a challenge. We had a virtual 2-day. There was a lot going on that seemed like
there was the virtual 2-day. There was the challenge.
Yeah.
What else? There was more. There was the holidays. I think we were off from
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Zoe was visiting. I went to New York. All sorts of things. We went to Florida. But here we are.
Oh, that's right. We did go to Florida.
And now the present moment is the one that we honor, and we are present and aware for this podcast, Illumination Podcast.
Long story short,
the 4th agreement.
A lot happened, but we're back and we're excited to be back.
Can we just so everyone knows, previous to this, if you go to illuminationpodcast.com, you're going to see the replays, the recordings, the podcast of the first 3 agreements. But what are those first 3 agreements?
Well, the first agreement...
And who wrote these anyways?
This is done by Don Miguel Ruiz.
And he's so smart.
He's so smart. He's so great. He teaches, it's called the Toltec tradition. And he broke it down. Like really one of the things that I love so much about this is just how he breaks it down so clearly,
right?
So simply.
It should be taught in schools.
It really should.
Honestly.
Yeah. I don't use that word lightly, the S word, right? But it really ought to be. First agreement, be impeccable with your word. Right? Your word is your wand. We talked about that one. That was in the first installment here. And then the second agreement, we talked about don't take anything personally.
Oh, that's a big one.
That was a big one.
Worth listening to, re-listening to, everyone, because it is essential for our mindset, energy, spirit.
Yeah. I think I maybe want to go back and listen to that one again too. It's just so easy to get sucked into that, you know? And then the third agreement, don't make assumptions.
Again. Yeah. Absolutely necessary. I think I two of my clients today, I was like, you're making assumptions. Don't assume unless you know.
Yeah.
Because even one smidgen off of the supposed story could create a whole spin, or a derailment of your energy or your mindset, just because you're stuck in this assumption that you don't really know is true.
Yeah. And it doesn't really promote open, healthy conversation when we make assumptions. I think sometimes we do it out of necessity, but more often that just, I think, happens just out of laziness and or fear of, kind of getting to a different layer of it or getting to a different level of understanding. And here, then we come to the conclusion of these 4 agreements. We're going to get into the 5th agreement next week. There is a 5th agreement, everybody, and it's awesome. You're going to love it. But today is the 4th agreement, and it is always do your best. Always do your best.
Game changer.
Game changer. And this is one time when I would say always, right? Really, really is meaningful. Always and never seldom apply, they say. But this is one where I think it's really appropriate. And he breaks it down in different details. I'm just going to kick off the chapter here. There's just one more agreement, but it's the one that allows the other 3 to become deeply ingrained habits. The 4th agreement is about the action of the first 3. Always do your best. So he sets it up that way, but then right after that, he speaks to something that I personally think is super, super important. Under any circumstance, always do your best, no more and no less. But keep in mind that your best is never going to be the same from moment to moment. Everything is alive and changing all the time. So your best will sometimes be high quality and other times it will not be as good. When you wake up refreshed and energized in the morning, your best will be better than when you are tired at night. Your best will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick, or sober as opposed to drunk. Your best will depend on whether you are feeling wonderful and happy or upset, angry, and jealous. So that's one I think that can become really oppressive for people. It's always do your best, always do your best. And they're trying really, really hard to do their best. And if it doesn't meet that golden standard every day, then all of a sudden it's really quickly into self-blame or judgment or criticism or those sorts of things, So that's why I think it's so important that he sets that up right off the bat.
It's more fluid, isn't it? Because if we think our best is to always get up at 5 a.m., yet your body's depleted and you don't get up at 5 a.m., you think you haven't done your best. That's actually inaccurate. Your body may have needed rest that morning.
Right.
It's really good.
It's hard. I think it's hard sometimes to have fluid goals like that, though, because it's like a set it and forget it thing. This is the time that I'm supposed to wake up. This is the time that successful people wake up. And so I'm going to wake up at that time and do these other things that, successful people do. And I'm going to do all this stuff. And that's going to be my measure.
Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's beneficial, right? There's a pattern. There's creating a habitual pattern. But I just like what he's saying. If you're having a day where maybe you're not feeling your best, you can still set the intention to do my best for that day.
Right. And we also, I think, expect ourselves to be the same every day.
Yeah.
We don't really give ourselves always the permission needed to be more fluid. Right. Your body, depending on rest, depending on what you ate, depending on a whole number of factors, emotional stuff going on, other things going on in your life, stresses, anxieties, all that kind of stuff. It has an impact on your energy and how you wake up and how you meet your day. Now, ideally, the more objective we are, obviously, right? The more that we're able to meet that clean and clear, really and truly meet it with our best and to have a higher level of our best along the way.
Yeah.
But for all of us, like everybody's on their journey and their spot on the journey, those certain things are going to have an impact.
Yeah.
And we just always, I don't think we always give ourselves the self-respect to recognize that we are vulnerable to those things. Like somehow it's just supposed to be, like a machine, some robot or something like that. So kind of tricky. Let's see here. Just do your best in any circumstance in your life. It doesn't matter if you are sick or tired. If you always do your best, there is no way you can judge yourself.
Sounds like keywords right there.
And if you don't judge yourself, there is no way that you are going to suffer from guilt, blame, and self-punishment. By always doing your best, you will break a big spell that you have been under.
Whoa.
Think about that.
Spell is a big one. Guilt, shame, and self-punishment spell.
Yeah.
Man, the GSSP spell.
Yeah.
That's bad.
That's not a good acronym.
No.
But maybe it'll
guilt, shame, self-punishment.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. Maybe it'll catch on. GSSP, everybody. Hashtag GSSP or no GSSP. But he talks here. I just think there's no way to get into that, like the self-blame and punishment. Now, I wish I could say that I always found this to be true. But what I found is that in my own personal experience, like there are times when I really did do my best. And then after the fact, I'm like going back into it and thinking like, well, you could have done this, or maybe you could have done more here.
Right.
Especially if something didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, or wasn't as successful as I'd hoped, then it's like my mind starts to go back and starts to find those, well, you could have done better here. You could have done more of this. You could have tried harder there. Like those kinds of things. And I don't think that's my mind just doing, because then I have to, like, inside of myself, I sometimes have to like talk myself off the ledge and be like, wait a second, man, you really did do your best. And, it's easy to get into the conversation around mitigating factors and selling yourself short and all that kind of stuff. Like this, he speaks about this in the terms of mastery, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But it's really important because these kinds of conversations are things that come up.
Right.
Right. And so it's, again, goes back to that being objective towards ourselves and being objective towards the circumstances to say, no, this really was my best. Because it's easy to let yourself off the hook sometimes too. I
know it works both ways is what I'm thinking. Is like, we do want to know if we haven't reached a goal or something, like, okay, what needs to change? But again, that word objectivity always comes to mind. Observing and understanding, and maybe even realizing under the current circumstances, I did my best or I didn't. But it's removing all the wrong and shame and guilt. Heaviness.
Right. Or you think about things that could have been different. Like say you're working towards a goal, and then there's some kind of drama in your relationship or in your family or something like that. And then you're like, oh, and so maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't work out, but you're looking back and you're like, oh, I didn't really do my best because I let that get to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a fair point. But at the same time, it's like, did you do your best to try and deal with it at the time? There's these little nuances to the conversation that I think it's important to kind of stay out of those and just give yourself permission, kind of give yourself the benefit of the doubt in a certain way of like, yeah, I did my best. Like, let that be it, you know? And just because you didn't reach the goal or hit the goal doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't do your best.
Interesting.
It is.
It means that there might have been other things that needed to happen as well.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Let's go on and see what else he had to say about this.
Well, he tells this interesting story at a Buddhist temple. The student shows up.
I love those Buddhists.
And the student shows up and he says, Master, if I meditate 4 hours a day, how long will it take me to transcend? The master looked at him and said, if you meditate 4 hours a day, perhaps you will transcend in 10 years. While thinking that he could do better, the man then said, oh, Master, what if I meditated 8 hours a day? How long would it take me to transcend? The master looked at him and said, if you meditate 8 hours a day, perhaps you will transcend in 20 years. Why will it take me longer if I meditate more? The man asked. The master replied, you are not here to sacrifice your joy of life. You're here to live, to be happy, and to love.
Aww.
If you can do your best in 2 hours of meditation, but you spend 8 hours instead, you will only grow tired, miss the point, and you won't enjoy your life. Do your best, and perhaps you will learn that no matter how long you meditate, you can live, love, and be happy.
That's incredible.
It's a good one.
So we might just bring doing our best to living, loving, and being happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of it.
That's a big part of it energetically.
But the over efforting, that gets into that. And something I hear you talk about a lot as well is trying too hard,
Right.
like you're trying too hard.
Squeezing it.
Yeah.
Willing
Squeezing it. That's
trying too hard. There's no room for the breath and the expansion of the manifestation or the result. It's just force, and the wrong kind of force.
Yeah. And it speaks to that old paradigm. Well, I have to work harder and do more to have more.
Right.
And it's really not.
I think we're finding through many studies and, participations, that is not the case, that when people actually create the space to live life, enjoy, etc., their whole creative mind, their whole being is more aligned with receiving abundance or receiving success.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, just as he said, if you're meditating 8 hours a day, you're missing the point. You're going to get frustrated, and it's going to take you twice as long. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And you're missing the forest for the trees,
right.
and it's like, you're over obsessed with that goal. Something we'll probably talk about in the future, the over potentializing of a goal and things like that. Topic for another day. But he gets into this section here, which I think is really cool. And one of the things I think that really does bring this together is he gets into action, like right action. Action is about living fully. Inaction is the way that we deny life. Inaction is sitting in front of the television every day for years because you are afraid to be alive and to take the risk of expressing what you are.
I hope he doesn't say anything against Queen of the South and watching that entire series.
I found no references to Queen of the South. Expressing what you are is taking action. You can have many great ideas in your head, but what makes the difference is the action. Without action upon an idea, there will be no manifestation, no result, and no reward.
Without action upon an idea, there will be no manifestation, no result, no reward.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's true. Action is the insignia of life.
Yeah. I love this, where he said this back here. Inaction is sitting in front of the television every day for years because you are afraid to be alive. And to take the risk of expressing what you are.
Oh man, that is a sad way to be.
I think it's probably one of the big challenges of living in the 3D world and like having a human form is that we try to just maybe do everything up in our heads, but the part of the 3D world is expressing into the 3D world, right? Expressing into the manifestation.
And creative, yeah.
And the action is
kind of makes me wonder where we're going with the whole AI and these experiences through whatever those things are. You put the goggles on your head and you're just moving,
like the virtual reality.
The virtual reality.
Yeah, I mean they've done some pretty interesting things with that.
I know, but talk about it's just weird.
They're getting people moving. They have. They have these I haven't tried them, but they're like fun workouts that you do in this virtual reality environment. Pretty fascinating. So he gets big in here to action, and I love this. He uses an example of Forrest Gump. A good example of this comes from the story of Forrest Gump. He didn't have great ideas, but he took action. He was happy because he always did his best at whatever he did. He was richly rewarded without expecting any reward at all. Taking action is being alive. It's taking the risk to go out and express your dream. This is different than imposing your dream on someone else because everyone has the right to express his or her dream. Bingo.
Everyone has the right to express his or her dream.
Yeah, it's such a big deal. I mean, such a big deal. And he goes on about this. Let's see here. There's one other that I wanted to bring up.
I love that so much that it's everyone. If we allow others to express their dream and we express our dream, like it's a whole creative society.
Yeah. And that's just it. Like so often things will get into like control,
right?
Control is a safety mechanism, right? To like control the environment or control somebody else so that you can, what's going to happen. Like, the outcome.
It's coming out of fear in a way.
It is for sure. But it doesn't, it takes away, right? It squashes things. It clamps down on it. And it also can take that choice away from other people as well. And that's not good. Like of all the things, that's a really, karmically, that's really heavy, right? Because then all of that winds up on you, and it just, now you're responsible for that. And that's a real problem. But like this permissiveness, and to recognize that everybody has a dream and everybody has a right to a dream. I think that's really cool. It's something that maybe gets missed when we're out and about in the wild dealing with #humans. It's easy to forget sometimes that everybody out there has a dream, even if they're not connected with it in a deep way. I know. They have a dream, and more importantly, they have a right to that dream.
They have a right to that dream.
And he talks here in action about the way of taking action, but without expecting a reward in return. So he's really talking about right action.
Ultimate and detachment. Ultimate.
Totally. Yeah. This is talked about. I know the place that I've studied it most is in the Vedanta philosophy, but particularly in the Bhagavad Gita around karma yoga, right? The yoga of action and that pure detachment. And he's one of the things that he comes through in this book quite a few times is just doing it for the joy of doing it.
Yeah.
You just do it because you do it, and you're not expecting anything in return. And that's when the biggest rewards come.
Yeah.
But I think that the getting into that space is not always the easiest thing in the world. So we don't need to know or prove anything just to be. To take a risk and enjoy life is all that matters. Say no when you want to say no. And yes when you want to say yes. You have the right to be you. You can only be you when you do your best. You can only be you.
Sounds a little Mr. Rogerish.
It is kind of, yeah.
You can only be.
You can only be you when you do your best.
Yeah.
You can kind of like see him singing a song about that. When you don't do your best, you are denying yourself the right to be you.
At your highest and best.
That's a seed that you should really nurture in your mind. You don't need knowledge or great philosophical concepts. You don't need the acceptance of others. You express your own divinity by being alive and by loving yourself and others. It is an expression of God to say, hey, I love you.
Seeking the true self within, man.
Yeah.
It's the best.
It is. I love how he ties that together there with self-love too. I think that's really powerful. It's like when you're doing your best, you're loving yourself. You know, you really are. Yeah. And it's a nuanced, I think if nothing else, to really highlight with this chapter of the book is that it is very nuanced discussion inside of you, know, about what your best is, and really being able to have an honest and objective conversation with yourself about what that is and giving yourself the permission to have it be enough.
Right.
That's true. I think that's kind of what I was getting at before when I was talking about like ruminating in the past and going into all that stuff. It's like, it's kind of like taking the permission away for that to be my best and then to put some other like imaginary, stipulations on it, some other imaginary sort of conditions on it. And then it's like, well, it wasn't really my best or something like that. But it's like, no, like give yourself permission to do your best and just do your best.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don Miguel.
For the 4 agreements, there you have it, everybody. That's the fourth agreement. Always do your best. Next week, we are going to continue with the 5th agreement, which was added at a certain point after. I don't know when exactly, but
it's book to itself.
It's got a whole book to itself, and it is a really cool agreement. I think you're going to love it. Can't wait to talk about that, and you can look forward to that coming out next week, everybody.
All right. See you soon. Much love.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.